Well, hello, this is Brian Malis from the ISPO Education Committee, and this tutorial was created for ISPO auditors. It's primarily designed to walk you through the auditor reporting tool and is really a how-to guide. To put the auditor reporting tool into proper context, it is first important to provide an overview of the new education standards and updated process. And as part of this overview, we'll walk you through the accreditation process, which includes the self-study, site visit, expectations of the auditors. You should, if you have any questions at the end of this, or when you are using the auditor tool, please feel free to reach out to the ISPO head office and they can direct your inquiries to the appropriate personnel. So the new education standards were officially rolled out in September of 2018 at the second GEM meeting that took place in Germany. The new standards were developed based on feedback from prosthetic and orthotic educators and the broader ISPO community. The result, the standards have shifted to a more conventional terminology. They align well with the WHO service standards for prosthetics and orthotics and are more outcome-based in nature. Details of the new education standards and supporting handbook can be accessed by going to the ISPO website at www.ispoint.org. And once you get to that page, if you hover over the Learn domain here, and you click on the education standards from the drop-down menu, you'll be able to access the standards and the supporting handbook. From an auditor standpoint, it's very important that the auditors familiarize themselves with both documents prior to the site visit. And we strongly recommend that as you are navigating through the auditor reporting tool, that you have both of these documents readily available, as you probably will need to reference these. So to put the auditor reporting tool into some frame of reference, the auditor report is really just one piece in this overall ISPO accreditation process. And although it is one piece, it is very important, as it is the point in the process where a major analysis of the program occurs. So briefly, and to put this in the context, the accreditation process is initiated by the program or pathway with a letter of intent, and that letter of intent is then sent to the ISPO head office. In turn, the ISPO head office then will provide a link to an online self-study, and then that program will work on the self-study. Once it's completed, the self-study is then submitted back to ISPO, to the head office, where it is distributed to members of the audit team so they can review the self-study prior to the actual site visit. So once that takes place, the site visit team, the auditors, will go to the program and they'll do their evaluation. And during that evaluation of the program, during that site visit, they'll begin to work on the auditor's report. And so at the conclusion, on that last day of that site visit, the auditor report should almost be completely done at that point. And so before we actually get into the mechanics of how the reporting tool works, I think it's important for us to do a little bit of a deeper dive with the self-study and to understand that. So the self-study, I think, as many of you know, is an objective, comprehensive evaluation of the training program with the aim of self-improvement, essentially. So the self-study it's a longitudinal process of formal self-reflection that emphasizes the strengths and self-identified areas of improvement. And so leading up to the audit, the program or pathway, once they've submitted that self-study report, it'll basically turn into a PDF document. And this PDF document is the self-study report, and that is provided to the auditors so they can review this. So this is just an example right here. So the way that the self-study report presents, again, it's in a PDF form. You would have your standard here. So this standard is related to admissions. You then have your evidence of compliance statement. So this is what the program sees. And then there's also, in some cases, a guidance statement to qualify or to give further information in order to assist the program as they're walking through and completing this document. And then you'll see here, and I've blanked this out or covered this up, this is the information that was then provided by the program that's seeking ISPO accreditation. Now, one of the things that you'll notice at the very bottom here, and this option is given with all of the standards, is that many times the information that needs to be provided goes beyond just having a narrative section. And so there's an opportunity for the programs to upload the documents that would support this narrative or would provide additional information. So if you're reviewing this report, you can certainly review the narrative piece, but you will also be able to click on this hyperlink here, which will take you to that particular document. It would be the recommendation of the ISPO Education Committee that as you are, as an auditor, as you're navigating through this self-study report in this PDF format, that you would highlight areas where you have questions, you need further clarification, and then when you move forward to do the site visit, you will already have those different points tagged here within the online self-study report, and then you can start to work through the actual online reporting tool, the auditor reporting tool. So a couple things now about the site visit itself, and it's really important to think about the spirit of what the site visit entails. So by both the site visit team, so the ISPO auditors and members of the host institution must appreciate that the ISPO auditors have two roles in determining the quality of the applying program. So one is to serve as the inquiring arm for the ISPO Education Committee, and the second is to evaluate the program against the ISPO education standards. Those are really the two primary roles here. If we take this a step further, the main objective of the site visit itself is to confirm that the program has a clear mission and goals that it regularly assesses, verify and clarify the description of the program as presented in the self-study. So do these two mirror one another, and if they don't, identifying why there's a gap between those two. Assess the program against its own stated goals, assess the program against the ISPO standards, and establish a basis for an evaluative report by the site visit team to ISPO. Provide an occasion for the exchange of information among colleagues and the learning about innovative developments, response to common problems and opportunities in a common field, and then demonstrate that graduates meet the competencies outlined in the standards. For the auditors, and again, this is all leading up to us reviewing the auditor tool, but again, it's important that we put this in the context. There typically is going to be a lead auditor, and then you would have a support team of other auditors. There likely will be an auditor who is in training as well, but the lead auditor is really the person who's responsible for the overseeing or the oversight of the site visit. So this is typically the most experienced person on the audit team, and they're going to direct the entrance and exit interview with program leadership. They'll direct and facilitate all meetings. They'll be responsible for finalizing of the on-site agenda and any sort of required modification to that agenda. They will be the lead in the development of the submission of the auditor report, but really a lot of this is being done in concert with the other auditors. So while the lead auditor will spearhead the completion of the auditor report, there is not an expectation that they're doing this in a vacuum. They should be working with the rest of the auditor team. They'll make final recommendations in consultation with the audit team, and then check the facts contained in the initial report with the school. They will be responsible for contacting the head office, EC, or the chair, and or vice chair when unforeseen or emergent issues arise that require immediate decisions for the education committee leadership level. And this last point is really related to when that site visit team is on the ground. The second auditor is their responsibility. Again, they're working in concert with the lead auditor, but really their role is to assist the lead auditor, participate in the final decision making, participate in all of the meetings, the interviews with students or faculty, and they will also help to develop and write the report. So let's move on to the auditor, excuse me, the auditor reporting tool, and I will show you how this works. So essentially, what will happen is that as an auditor, you will receive a similar link, hyperlink to the one that you see here from the head office. So you're going to click on the hyperlink, and it's going to take you to the auditor reporting tool. So you will first be prompted to sign a confidentiality agreement. So all information is going to remain confidential, and you're only going to share this with the appropriate parties. And in this case, it typically is going to be the ISPO Education Committee, and then designated representatives from the program seeking accreditation. So in terms of the program, at the completion of this report, a preliminary report will be sent to those designees from the program, and it'll give them an opportunity to review the report. And then after that, once it's finalized, it will then be sent up to the ISPO Education Committee for final decision. So we'll do this. So we'll accept this, accept, and then it'll prompt me to go to the next field. I will put in the password, and this will be shared with you when you receive that initial hyperlink. The next part of the inquiry here, as you start to populate this document, this auditor site visit tool, is that it's going to ask you how many people are participating in the site visit. And so in this case, let's say that we have 2 individuals. And now it's going to prompt me for information. So I'll put my name. And then here, I need to identify what my role is. And let's say for right now, I'm the lead auditor. Put in my ISPO email address, phone number, and then it'll prompt me to move next. So because I said that there were 2 individuals, there's going to be another window that pops up. And let's say that Georgia is helping here. And let's say Georgia is an observer. So once I populated the information that's related to the auditors, the tool will then take me to this next page, and it's prompting me to put in really the site visit demographics. So the information related to the program. So let's say we'll call this program ISPO University. Check the ISPO accreditation being sought by the program. We'll say new accreditation. Identify the accreditation type. So we'll say that they're seeking program accreditation rather than the pathway. And then it's important to identify the level. So we'll say process orthotist, and then the site visit start date. So let's say that that's today. And then let's say that it ends on the 22nd. Okay. So now we move to the navigation page. So upon completion of, again, the auditor information, the information related to the program, you then will be directed to this landing or navigation page. It is very, very important that you copy and bookmark this link. We will send you an email, but again, just to be safe, what you want to do is you want to copy and bookmark this link, as all subsequent access to the reporting tool will need to be initiated by clicking on this hyperlink. If you use the previous hyperlink, what it will do is it will prompt you again to keep repopulating the auditor and program information. So moving forward, just use this link and we'll always take you back to the navigation page. And that's really where you want to start once you've entered that initial information. So let's kind of try to familiarize you with the navigation page. The navigation page is really divided into various sections, and these are all based on the education standard. So each one of these is the education standard, all right? And the reason that we have the navigation page set up like this is that to try to go in a straight order with the standards that isn't consistent with the sequencing of the site visit, or as you're gathering information, would make this quite onerous. So if if maybe, the first day you're gathering information related to this particular standard, well, then you could click on that particular standard, and you could start to fill in the information as you're doing your analysis. So once all of these sections have been populated, then what it will do is it will eventually generate a report. So let me give you a couple, or share with you a couple different aspects of this navigation page. So if I am working on these various standards, I may decide that, as I've discussed with other members of the site visit team, that we're going to, at least initially, divide up how we enter the information. So maybe I'm going to take the first three standards and I'll populate those fields. And then maybe I have two other auditors that are with me. What I could do is I could put in their email address right here and I could send it. So they would have a link to that particular standard, so they can also start to populate the fields within that standard. Okay, so let's click on, let's go to this. So if you click on answer, that will then take you to this particular standard. And so this is a standard right here. Programs implement a systematic approach to curriculum design. Each one of these points here is a evidence of compliance statement. All right, and that essentially supports the standard. All right, and as you kind of walk through this particular instrument, or excuse me, this particular section, what you'll end up doing is you can hover over each one of these points here, each one of these evidence compliance statements, and it will give you additional guidance or additional information as you're trying to render a decision about the program. So this can be helpful. If it's not in blue, then there probably isn't some sort of guidance statement there, okay? All right, so what you want to do then at that point is you will begin to check these boxes, and these boxes are related to these standards and these evidence of compliance statements, right? And so you're just simply confirming what's true or what's currently happening with the program, what the current status is, Okay, so maybe as you go through this particular point here, you find that there's no evidence. So you would click here that you found no evidence during the site visit or no evidence within the self-study. Maybe there was evidence that was found, but based on the way the standard is set up, the program in its current state is not compliant with this evidence of compliance statement. You could, as you do your analysis, find that the program is meeting this in its current state. For some of these, as you begin to populate this, there are going to be times where maybe you feel as an auditor team that this is fairly self-explanatory and that it doesn't warrant a comment. And so you wouldn't click on the comment box. But in this case, programs plan and design a curriculum that meets national and/or international regulatory requirements for practice and education. Let's say the program is not meeting this as part of the standard, but you also want to qualify this or give a comment. So what you would do is you click on the comment box, and then what that does is it will open up a area for you to make a comment about the program. So, you know, we could put in whatever information we need to at that point. So then you could you progress simply through each one of these standards. All right, I'm just in this case just saying that the program is meeting these. Once I've completed the section, if I want to go back to the navigation page, I simply click on back, and then that takes me right back to this landing page again, okay? And you'll see that in this case, now the status shows that I have completed that particular standard. Okay, so each one of these sections are set up the same way, and you would populate and provide information in the same manner. So you're clicking or you're checking boxes that either there's no evidence, they're not compliant, or they are compliant. And then again, you can, if you want to qualify why you've selected that particular status level as it relates to the standards, then you can click on the comment box. So as you go through all of this, you're going to get to a point where you have it's called a summary page, okay? Let me take you to the summary page. So if I click on this, and this will be an important section for the auditors. After you, and this shouldn't really be done until all of the other previous sections have been completed. So you provide a summary of the program's strengths. So keep in mind the program wants and should know what it is doing well, and this is an opportunity for you, the auditor team, to populate this area. To identify specific, and it's important to be specific, any areas of non-compliance. And then what you could also include here would be any sort of recommendations. It's important to also include an executive summary of the program or pathway. And then once you've done that, so let's assume that that was populated, you then would go to the outcomes and final recommendation. Click on this. So again, this section, it's going to be required and it's got to be completed by the auditor team. So the auditor team must select what's called a quality indicator level for the program. And although ISPO's role is to identify if the program is, and this is important, is meeting the threshold of minimum standards, the programs oftentimes want to know where they stand in relationship to that minimum standard threshold. And there's more information about this you can find in the handbook and also the standards document that I shared earlier in this discussion. So what you as the auditor team would do, again, you're making the recommendation up to the ISPO Education Committee. They may deem that this isn't the appropriate recommendation, but so they will be the ones making the final decision on this. But let's say that, again, compliance. This means that this is our threshold. The program is meeting the minimum standard. Let's say that the program is proficient. any one of these that's selected, you as the auditor team need to comment, and you need to identify or give the rationales to why this has been, this level has been selected. In addition to that, the auditor team is going to be asked to give their recommendation in terms of how long the accreditation cycle should last. So let's say 3 years, whatever my comments are there. And then once that's complete, again, assuming all of the standards have been addressed, all those sections have been completed, the summary section has been completed, I then can move to I could go next and it would take me to that next section, but just so you can see the bigger picture, it then would take me to this section right here, review and final submission. So what this does here, all right, you have the opportunity to review the report for final submission, and then you have the opportunity to share this with the rest of the auditor team. So, so you can see here, this is the information that I had populated at the beginning, right? I accepted the confidentiality piece to site visitors. This is in a pretty raw form here. It's got the information that I put in about the auditors, about the site visit demographics. And then you can see here, this is that one standard that I had selected. So you can do this at any time. You don't have to do this at the very end, this particular section. If you want to just see how the report's generating, where there may be gaps in information that hasn't been included within the report, you can do this at any time, right? You can see here's the outcome and final recommendation. Now, what you can do is you can also download a PDF version. In the PDF version, just give me a minute here. The PDF version is gonna be a cleaner version. So you see that it's formatted a little bit differently and a little bit cleaner here. This is the report that would be sent. This is the preliminary report that would be sent to the program that is seeking accreditation. And what they will do is they'll have 4 days to respond to the preliminary report. And what they can do is they can only comment and confirm on that the information is correct. They can't look at the report and say that they want to change the recommendations or they want to change areas of non-compliance. It's just simply to confirm that the data that's been put in is in fact correct. After those 4 days and the program responds back, let's go back here. And now you have a finalized report. You go to next, and then you would enter information. So who's submitting this, the email address. And so let's do this here. So I'm completing this. Next, and I have just completed the auditor site visit report. And what will happen is that I will get a report sent back to me as the lead auditor, and then and you can see here, confirmation of the auditor report receipt is right here. This will also be sent to the head office. So the head office will have the final report, and then they will be able to share that with the education committee. So that is the completion of this, we call it tutorial, if you will. And hopefully you find this useful. And it'd be good to review this prior to actually using the reporting tool. Again, if you have any questions, please send your inquiries to the ISPO head office, and then they can either respond to those inquiries or they can direct those to the appropriate people. If that's me, then I will try to respond as quickly as possible. So that's it. Hope this has been helpful for you, and enjoy the rest of the day.